All right, we are live, but we got to get the Facebook groups in here, get them all checked, and waiting for green check marks now. Hope you all in the chat are having a good night, ready to have yourselves a good weekend. We got green check marks across the board. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Dove Valley Deep Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and joining me, as always, is Kenneth Booker. Kenneth, man, what a surprising game that we just dealt with. How are you doing, and how are you feeling from the Broncos getting their first win?
Yeah, it's just like what I was saying last week. It's like you never know because the Broncos are always that team that loses to the team they should beat, and they always beat the team they should lose to. They played pretty flawless football out there. It looked like preseason all over again. The way Bo Nix was like just the timing was down, the completions were coming, the chains were moving. It was really nice to watch. But I don't know if it's fool's gold, you know. Um, is it because we didn't really have to face a really stout front defensive front because of Vita Vea and was it Glancy or Clancy?
Kalijah
The other,
Kancey, yeah.
yeah, he was out. Unlike the other weeks where we had to face like a Hayward or the Seattle's front and their young what was that guy's
Byron Murphy.
yeah, Byron Murphy. So we'll see. We'll see if they've adjusted to it, but I don't know. I got to see it more. I can't just have one good game on one really good team, and it was really impressive. We'll see though. Um, I'm just not
Yeah,
completely sold yet.
yeah. I mean, I'm curious and I'm cautiously optimistic about this offensive line. They did really well against the Buccaneers, but as you said, no Vea, no Cansey, and those are the two guys that make that Buccaneers pass rush tick. So without them, they're missing those big elements. Hopefully, it was a promising sign, but we got to wait and see when they're facing a little bit tougher guys. The stars in the league, and there's some tough matchups here. Quentin Williams, he's one of the best young interior defensive linemen in the NFL, and they've got
He's
good
so
depth
good.
there. They've got good depth there in with the New York Jets, so it's going to be a test for them. And I also, when I watched back over the Buccaneers tape, one thing that I was worried is that with Alex Palczewski coming in, that with the Todd Bowles defense, they were going to really target him, but they didn't. They kept their focus on Garrett Bowles, and Garrett Bowles held his own for the most part. And Alex Palczewski, he was struggling. Like he didn't have a terrible game. Don't get me wrong, but he was struggling. But they just never really tried him. Like, and to give credit to Sean Payton and the offensive staff of the Broncos, they also gave him a lot of help. There was a lot of tight end chips from on his end, and a lot of tight ends staying into block. And when the running back was kept into block, they're often shading off that right side. So they were giving him a lot of help, but still, the Buccaneers didn't test that. I don't think the New York Jets are going to play as soft on that against Palczewski this game to make it a little bit easier for him. And that right side of their pass rush, that is where on the edge, anyways. That's where their threats are. That's where Will McDonald comes from. That's where what's his name? He's like in his third year, fourth year out of Florida State. Um, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He rushes off that side for the most part. So it's definitely going to be challenging. But before we get even more into this upcoming game, we have some people here from the chat to say hello to. Catalano coming in and saying, I'm in Illinois, and it's
Oh,
always
you
great to
said it
see.
right. You
We
didn't say
have
Illinois.
I if I was doing this privately, it would be Illinois. California, we have Florida, and
Oh,
we have a bunch of
nice.
people from all over the world, which is why Chad always says that Mile High Huddle, Broncos country, it's not a geographical location, it is a state of being. And it is always so true when we're always reminded about how spread out around the world we
Yeah,
are.
you're
I
you're in
mean,
Alaska. I'm in Colorado.
Alaska to the East Coast to
Where is Michael
everywhere.
Ronquillo in Colorado? He is, isn't he?
I'm not sure where
I
Michael is, but he's coming in with some stars, as he always does, and we always appreciate your support. Saying good evening, Eric and Kenneth on the Dub Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos.
thank you, Michael. I love it. I love every time I see Michael comment in there. It's a good start to the day.
It's always nice too because when news happens while we're live, we always can count on Michael coming in and bringing it in and mentioning it.
Yeah, he's
And it's always so appreciative. We have Todd Ossendorf, Roy Osborne
right.
coming in saying good evening, Eric and KB. Todd saying hello, Broncos fan. Hello, Todd. How are you doing? We have Jerron Washington. All we need to do is pressure Aaron Rodgers and not let Brees Hall run over us. Which
Eh,
brings out a interesting thing. Brees Hall hasn't been very successful this year. He has been struggling. He's only averaging 3.7 yards per carry, and his success rate is right around 20%. Um, if I remember correctly, I might be mistaken on that, and I can actually pull it up here in a minute. But pressuring Aaron Rodgers, that is 100% key. He is one of the least pressured quarterbacks in the NFL. He's only pressured at the sixth lowest rate of 26.3%. If you take out Tua Tagovailoa and Bryce Young, who've only played 2 games, Aaron Rodgers is now third, or no, sorry, now fifth in that. Um,
okay.
Amongst those, he's only been pressured 25 times. He's only been sacked 5 times. He's not pressured a lot. But surprisingly, the weak link, when I was watching over them and looking at the data and the stats and all that, Tyron Smith, the left tackle that they signed from the Dallas Cowboys, he's the weak link on this offensive line. He is at fault for the second highest amount of pressures among tackles this season. He has been struggling. His like 41.3% of the pressures or something like that are his fault or have fault falling on him. And with Baron Browning, it's going to make it out. It's going to make it a little bit harder to pressure him. But I think Nick Benito can really step up here. He had a good game against Tristan Wirfs, and I think that we need to have that carry over and really put pressure on Aaron Rodgers this week.
Yeah, Nick Benito he's looked pretty impressive so far. Him and Cooper, and then Zach Allen as well. Zach Allen's a beast every single game. He makes just a manly play. Like, did you see the Baker Mayfield where he cleaned up the sack on that one?
Yeah.
And I was like, I think Baker Mayfield is going to stay overnight in a hospital somewhere. Like, he just smashed him to the ground. It was borderline penalty for these days in football. But yeah, I don't know how we're going to hold up. We got to get the pressure on them. We got to get them flustered. But we'll see how it plays out. But the Jets and the Broncos both have two of the most impressive front sevens pass rush wise so far this season. I think it's like 14 or 15 sacks for the Jets, and it's 11 for us. We'll see who can win that battle. But I think for us to win, we have to win that battle. We have to get him kind of running for his life, dirting some balls at some people's feet, and just get him flustered because he does. I mean, he still can play well when he's upset, but he definitely wears his emotions on his shoulders, Rodgers. So we got to get under his skin.
Yeah, and there's definitely a couple comments here that I want to talk about when we get to the defensive side of the ball. One of them being about Sauce Gardner, who this year the name is more intimidating than his play, but we'll get to that here in a second. With the pressure aspect of it, that is what makes or breaks this Broncos defense. If they aren't getting pressure, opposing quarterbacks are having pretty good success. Granted, both interceptions have come against no pressure, or sorry, one of the things has been considered not under pressure, and that was Baker Mayfield's interception. Geno Smith's was considered light pressure. So you want to get pressure on him. Aaron Rodgers isn't a guy who's made a lot of mistakes this year. He's got 1 interception so far this season to 5 touchdowns, and he's making the completions that are needed to. His completion percentage over expected. Again, it's tracking data with where the ball is placed and whether the receiver should catch it or not, or should be broken up. It's based off that what is expected to be caught. He's only missing 1.5% under the completion percentage under expected. So
Okay.
his ball placement has always been great, and it continues to be great. And the wide receivers here with the New York Jets, Garrett Wilson, I would expect Patrick Surtain to match up against him for most of the game. Last year, Patrick Surtain shut him down for 2 catches for 22 yards and a touchdown on 6 target, or sorry, no touchdown, but an interception and a pass breakup, and on 6 targets. But my concern lies when they start moving their receivers around. So Alan Lazard is in the slot for 44.9% of the time, and Garrett Wilson is 44.7% of the time. Pretty even split there of who's working in the slot. And when Alan Lazard is in the slot, he has such a tremendous size advantage over Jaquan McMillan that for me, that is a concern. And you need to help him out by getting that pressure up front And talking about, before I pass this off to you, last thing on this, you mentioned Zach Allen, and I would not be surprised to see Zach Allen have a quiet game this week against the
Hmm.
New York Jets. Their interior offensive line has been phenomenal, and they held Jeffrey Simmons, who's one of the best young and interior defensive linemen in the NFL, to zero pressures. They
Oh
basically
wow.
shut him out of the game. Hopefully, that the talent around Zach Allen creates openings for him to make plays, but I would not be surprised if this is a quiet one for Zach Allen.
That's impressive to shut down Jeffrey Simmons like that. Um, because I was it I always mess up his name. Because Quillen, where the defense tackle for the Jets,
Quinton Williams.
Quinn Williams. I compared them as like kind of like almost as equals,
Mhm.
and to be able to shut down somebody like that, those guys almost it seemed like they're almost a matter of time. Like you can shut them down here and there, but they're eventually going to get through, just because it's like blocking a bear. It's like I don't know. Those guys are insanely strong, uh, super talented. They're like little baby Sues, Dominican Sues. Um, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. The thing I'm really kind of worried about is a relatively unknown on the Jets and their backup running back, Braylon.
Braylon Allen.
Um,
Yeah.
it reminds me of this story I heard about. I think it was Barry Switzer, or so I forgot what it was, where Thurman Thomas. I think he started over Barry Sanders, and they were like, uh, "What did they say?" They said something about like, "It's like, oh, how does it feel like to play Thurman Thomas?" It's like, "Hey, man, he's a super talented guy, but I hope he doesn't get hurt because I don't want to play the guy behind him."
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of right now is Raylan Allen. I think he's due to blow up for a game. He's pretty explosive. He can do everything. He's a pass catching back too. So that's the one I'm pretty worried about right now. And then Mike Williams, we'll see how he does. I know he's coming off a big injury, but he's always been a really talented guy. He's big. He's strong. Um,
Yeah.
he's a red zone threat. So we'll see.
And he'll likely be facing off against Riley Moss for the majority of the game when he's on the field.
Mm-hmm.
But Braylon Allen, I'm with you. He has been the better running back of the two. Brees Hall has been struggling this season so far. But Braylon Allen, when you look at the Broncos defense and what style of runners they're struggling against versus what they're doing well, Braylon Allen, he's this bigger, powerful back, not as bursty or speedy. Not saying he doesn't have it, but the Broncos have done well shutting down those running backs so far in 3 games. It's the Brees Hall type, the quicker, more agile, faster guys that they have struggled with. Bucky Irving, Kenneth Walker. Kenneth
Mm-hmm.
Walker is very similar mold to Brees Hall in how they play the game, how they play at the running back position. That is where they've struggled against. So I'm still very concerned about Braylon Allen, but I'm concerned that this could be a game where Brees Hall can have that bounce back. So he has 3.7 yards per carry. He's only picked up 12 yards over expected. So the blocking has been a bit of an issue. He's had 3 rushes go over 10 yards, but he's also fumbled. His rushing EPA is negative 9.2. And offensively, obviously, you want positive. Expected points added is EPA. So negative, you want on defense, positive, you want on offense. Keeping points from being scored for scoring points. So negative 9.2, that is one of the lowest in the NFL so far this season. He's
Yeah.
really struggled. The fumble does, kill that a little bit. And he's getting contact pretty early. So he's picked up 173 yards after contact. He only has 170 rushing yards total. So he's getting
Well,
consistently hit in the backfield pretty much.
okay.
Braylon Allen, on the other hand, he's 96 yards, only been touched behind yards after contact 65, positive 2.2 EPA, 3 rushes of 10 yards, as well as Hall, 1 touchdown to 2 touchdowns for Hall. So Allen has done well, but I'm really curious how the Broncos will hold up against this
What a
because of the styles of them that they've had success with,
what a gr-
especially with Alex Singleton being out for this game.
what a great 1-2 duo
Mhm.
that they have on their team. Um, what do you think about Jim Ron Washington was talking about over here with kind of like it might be a good tactic to go after Sauce Gardner to see if they're willing to they're going to hold on to those flags, hold them in their pocket if they're going to pull them.
So, real quick before we get into that, we have this super chat here
Oh,
for
my bad.
$9.99. We appreciate that. Edwards, he says, thanks for the
Thank
show,
you.
guys. Hey, Eric, how do you feel about Al Pals? I'm assuming Alex Palczewski play. Heard some mixed reviews, and I'm worried about the rush from the Jets. Also, Q Williams against Wattenberg and our interior. Yeah, Quentin Williams against Ben Powers and Wattenberg, and even Miners, who's been a bit of an issue, had a bounce back game this last week, but wasn't facing a super tough interior defensive lineman. And last year, Quentin Williams really made Quinn Miners struggle. I'm concerned about Quentin Williams against the front, but as for Alex Palczewski, I think he was very up or down. The Broncos gave him help a lot. He did win some one-on-ones, but there's also some plays where it's like, all right, you made that first effort as a blocker. Now go make that second effort as a blocker, and some of that could be, the lack of experience. This was his first game playing in the NFL in the regular season, his first start. Like, the inexperience is there, but there's some of these things that are just heads up plays that you need to make as an offensive lineman, no matter how much experience you have. He wasn't really making those. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't really press him super hard. They didn't really press the arc to get after Bo Nix a lot on that right side of the offensive line. They made life easy for him, and he was able to hold his own.
Mhm.
So I think there's reason for promise here. And I've seen a lot of people saying that, oh, when Mike McGlinchey's back, Alex Palczewski should be starting over him anyways. Well, no, he shouldn't. This is the one game sample size from Alex Palczewski that we still got to wait to see. And second of all, there's about 40 million reasons why that when Mike McGlinchey's back healthy, he's going to be starting, and that is because of the contract they gave him and then just restructured. They cannot get out of Mike McGlinchey's contract until 2026, until after the 2025 season, to be clear. And like, even at that point, they're still taking a pretty big hit dead money wise compared to what they're saving. That makes it seem likely, although not 100%, that he'll be there through the 2026 season. You can't have that kind of money sitting on the bench, and unless he's hurt. So when Mike McGlinchey's back, I fully expect him to be the starter. But you mentioned Quentin Williams earlier against them. What about what is? How do I put this? Is there anyone else, I guess is the better way to put it, on this defensive front that is concerning you almost as much as Quentin Williams?
So Hassan Reddick is still holding out, right?
Yes.
So you don't got to worry about him. Quentin Williams, and then what? Who are the two other guys on the front? Oh, McDonald. McDonald has 5 sacks already, right?
I think so. I'm pulling up the stats
It's
now.
insane.
He's been really good this year.
I don't understand. We get 7 sacks in one game, and we're still behind these guys.
Yeah.
By 3 sacks. Yeah, I just think it's like a mixture of all of them. I really, to the Edwards family question, which thank you so much for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. That was really nice of you, and it goes a long way to helping us out here. But the Palczewski, I liked how they knew they needed to help him out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Even if they didn't, they still threw it out there a little bit just to make sure he was taken care of and he wasn't going to just drown out there. It wasn't like a Schofield where Khalil Mack's getting 3 sacks and they're still leaving him all by himself. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, this guy's getting destroyed. So I like how they noticed that they probably should start shading some blockers over there, some tight end chips and some running backs. But yeah, the McGlinchey's going to get his job when he comes back. He might have the same production, but it's going to be without the chip blocks and stuff like that. He's still really good. He's maybe not playing where his contract should be, but he's definitely better than Palczewski. But that's really nice to have somebody that's somewhat comparable to McGlinchey as a backup, so you really don't lose too much when you do have an injury. But yeah, I don't know how they're Wattenberg. I got more faith in Powers now that he can hold up against these big, strong guys. But yeah, Wattenberg and Palczewski, I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna hold up. And Wattenberg's the worst one because it's just right up the middle.
Yeah. And you mentioned Will McDonald. He does have 5 sacks. He leads the team in pressures, and he mainly rushes off that right tackle side. Jermaine Johnson was the other pass rusher. He hasn't done a whole lot this season. He's been struggling a little bit, but I mean, Solomon Thomas on the inside and Quentin Williams, of course. They have a deep group that can really play. Now, earlier, and you were bringing it up about my comment about Sauce Gardner. Let's see if I can't find the comment here that was bringing it up in the chat. There we go. He says, if I was Bo Nix, I wouldn't try to throw it near Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner is an interesting study so far in these 3 games, and his name is bringing more intimidation than his play. And bear with me, there's going to be a lot of numbers here thrown your way, and I can explain them all. So average separation should be self-explanatory. How much of separation the receiver is getting against the corner. It's also a cornerback stat. How little are they giving up? The league average for 3 years as a boundary corner is 2.8. Sauce Gardner is allowing 2.1. So he's playing really close to um, he's keeping the receivers really tight and close to him. But the issue is he is allowing a lot of catches. He's not finishing the play.
Oh,
He is allowing 17.4 catch rate over expected. And that really highlights how tight coverage he's playing versus the number of receptions he's allowed. Now, he's only been targeted 11 times. Even teams haven't really been attacking him in coverage. That name still carries a lot of weight. This is all as a boundary corner, to be clear. I mean, so when he gets pulled into the slot and things like that, the numbers are a little bit different. This is strictly as a boundary corner. He's allowing a 135.4 passer rating when targeted, 8 receptions, 11 targets again, 112 yards, a single touchdown. He
what do you
has
attribute
been,
that to? Yeah.
it's just this issue with finishing the play for him. It could be a fact that when I watched him, this seemed to be the case. But granted, I didn't watch every single Jets game. I only watched the last two. I wasn't able to watch the first one in time for tonight. Is he isn't getting his head turned around in time. And what's concerning here is he hasn't faced the toughest of passing offenses and has been getting attacked like this. I mean, the New England Patriots, they really don't have anybody at receiver. The Tennessee Titans, their quarterback is an issue, but their two receivers had some of the best days, had their best days of the season going specifically against Ahmad Gardner in DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Broncos here, I don't think that Bo Nix needs to be afraid of attacking Sauce Gardner, but they got to make sure they keep that pass rush in check and not enable these errant throws towards his direction, enabling him to get these pass breakups and these interceptions. Because playing corner is such a confidence position. You have to play with confidence. If you're not, you're likely going to struggle until you get it back. So one play can, bring that confidence back. And it also creates pressure on the Broncos receivers to where they need to get open because Josh Reynolds and Cortland Sutton are both below the 3-year league average for creating separation amongst receivers and significantly lower. I believe one's at 2.1 and the other one's at 2.4 when the league averages are like 3, I think, for receivers over the last 3 years.
Yeah,
So,
I've noticed in the first couple games there were some tight windows that both
yeah.
had to throw into. I was wondering if Sauce just isn't like following through and punching the ball out as he's doing the tackle, like how edge rushers are always swiping at that ball as they're trying to get that sack.
So again, when I was watching him, it's like,
or he's not even turning his head down in time.
Yeah,
to
it's
even
like he's not seeing the ball in time to where when he sees the catch is already made when he's sitting there going to make that swipe at it. And with some of these guys, I mean, they've got such strong hands that it makes it harder for them to break that pass up there at that last second. So it is definitely a factor that he is being late with his head getting turned around and just not playing super tight coverage. But on that note, is Sauce Gardner has a history of being really grabby. We all remember last year there's that play where it should have been defensive pass interference. It was clear cut, textbook defensive pass interference on Sauce Gardner against Cortland Sutton and wasn't called. And it happened. I mean, it's happened every single year. He's just not doing that, or it's just an issue. And this year there seemed to be a focus of cutting those penalties back, where he's not being as grabby. So that also can be attributing to his issues with finishing plays and cutting back on some of these catches he's allowing.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that if I was him. I'm playing the same way until they start calling it.
Yeah.
If they don't call it, I'm playing super aggressive. Yeah, I wouldn't back off until because it's just gonna hurt his whole game, and then he's got to get back into his original way how he was guarding people. But I don't know. Looks like Ronquillo is out in Tucson. Okay. Beautiful place. I was out in Sierra Vista at where Fort Huachuca is. We did some Army training down there, but I liked Tucson. Tucson was fun. Have you been down to Arizona, Eric?
I've been to the airport in Phoenix.
Oh, okay. I heard their
And
the tires
to
melt.
be fair, I've driven through Arizona. Um, actually, the guy who my first name's after, for those of you who don't know, Eric isn't my first name. Gordon is my first name. The guy I was named after, he lived in Flagstaff, I think is where he was.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to a Six Flags that was near there when I was really little. So I guess I shouldn't say I've only been to the airport. I've been to Arizona quite a bit.
Okay.
More than I remembered.
You know what's kind of cool? They have Tombstone out there. You ever seen the movie Tombstone?
Yep.
Yeah, they have that out there. And for Memorial Weekend, those actors will come out there and
That's
they'll like
cool.
sign autographs and whatnot. But it's the town still looks like the Western town. It's really cool.
Yeah. It was one place that I know I've been there when I was really, really little. Tombstone was one of my mom's favorite movies. So like we were driving through there for something my parents did for work and had to stop by.
Bisbee's pretty nice too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like Mosley's out of the game too.
Yeah, I think he was listed as doubtful. Which getting to that aspect of it, I'll pull up the injury report here. I know that Morgan Moses was ruled out. And talking about the offensive line and how little pressures they've been giving up, Morgan Moses has been playing really well at right tackle. So him being out opens the door for Jonathan Cooper and DeAndre Tillman to step up and have a good game. Both of them, I mean, Tillman was great last week. There were some hiccups against the run, but as a pass rusher, oh man, like he came out with a chip on his shoulder and just played super well. And then Jonathan Cooper, he had that big first game, and he's been solid the last two. Not as loud of a game since that 2-sack performance against the Seahawks. So not going against Morgan Moses, I think, is going to help them out. And again, you want to pressure Tyron Smith on the left side. He's been dealing with an injury. He's been rested the couple days this week, not dealing with an injury, but he's been struggling. And so you can really press the edges. And if you can do that, I think talked earlier again about Zach Allen having a quiet game. If you can press those edges, especially around the arc, you could possibly get the offensive line to fan out and spread out with their blocking a little bit more to create more of an opportunity for Vance Joseph gap shooting front to get penetration inside with John Franklin Myers, DJ Jones, Zach Allen, or Malcolm Roach.
Definitely. Yeah, it's I love the chess matchup up front and how they play that. I forgot who one of their ends. Somebody was talking about it was a Luke that had an amazing spin move that they were hitting people on. I forgot who it was, but their left tackle out of USC is like last year. He's a first round draft pick. Was it Tucker? I heard he's playing really well this year. He was like a raw talent guy, whatever. You see, was it
Elijah Vera Tucker? He's been really good at right guard. He's been moved inside. He's been in the NFL for a while. But they also brought in John Simpson from Baltimore to help shore up that left side. He plays left guard. Joe Tippmann, the Wisconsin center that the Broncos were highly interested in that year's draft. So they've got a really young room. And then Carter Warren, he's the guy who I believe is expected, or no, sorry, not Carter Warren. Olu Fashanu is the rookie offensive tackle out of Penn State that is expected to start at right tackle. So it's going to be a tough matchup for them still, but you're going against the rookie who has some technical issues that you can sit there and exploit. Really good athlete. So I think the opening is still there because Morgan Moses, he's not as good of an athlete, but he is so technically sound that he can cover up for athleticism. When you're looking at tackles, there's only so much good athleticism can cover for bad technique, but there's a lot that great technique or a lot that good technique can cover up with poor athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Fashanu they have a really good offensive line coach there with the New York Jets, though. So we'll see how well he's come around. But I do think that this is an area where Cooper and Tillman can sit there and attack that right tackle and really press that side of it to help open up the line.
I forgot that the Jets had Solomon Thomas and Javon Kinlaw.
Yeah.
Kinlaw was a beast for the 49ers. So, I mean, they were both for the 49ers, right?
Yes.
Solomon Thomas didn't pan out as good, but he's still productive. He was supposed to be really good, though. But, yeah, man. How many first rounders have they got on that D line? That's
A lot.
it's insane.
Their
There's
defensive front is filled with first rounders or former first rounders. And it is just one of the most talented, like, or sorry, not talented, but it is one of the most talented, but one of the most invested in units in the front, which makes sense with their head coach.
oh
I
yeah.
mean, he's a defensive line guy, and so it makes sense that he would want to continue to invest so much in there.
Yeah.
And he did also came over from the San Francisco 49ers, where he was when Solomon Thomas was drafted.
Oh, okay, yeah. Looks do you think Bo Nix will get his first touchdown pass this game?
Yeah. So I actually just got done writing my bold predictions a little bit ago. Got them sent in. Will come in. I have Bo Nix going off on this game. I think that they're going to ride high off that win.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to, what's the right way to put this? They're going to want to play for their honor of their coach and have that little extra fight after last year with what was said from Sean Payton about the Nathaniel Hackett era and then going out and losing to the New York Jets. I think there'll be more pride in this. And I think the biggest thing is Sean Payton has figured out how to work an effective quick passing game with Bo Nix. We saw it
Mm-hmm.
against the Buccaneers. And I think that is what's going to help carry over, or what can be carried over into this game against the New York Jets and help lead them to, I have them winning this game.
Okay.
I believe one of the few of Mile High Huddle who actually has them winning this game. And that is the big reason why. Is it's a good way to counter the pass rush. We've seen them try to do that the first 2 weeks with this quick passing game, but it wasn't effective. The way they were doing it wasn't working. So finding a way that works, I think that can be a good thing. And I think that you can also see this offense find their feet on the ground, because as good as the Jets are, defense is like the Broncos. Really good passing defense. They're one of the best. The Broncos are one of the best, but they are just worse than the Broncos against the run. In almost every single analytic that I look at, every single stat, they are literally one spot lower than the Broncos in almost every single one. They really struggle with it, especially runs to the outside,
Mm-hmm.
which I would be running Tyler Beatty and Jaleel McLaughlin all day on those runs outside.
Yeah, we'll see if they run them a lot. I'm pretty excited to see Tyler Bidet.
Bidet,
Yeah,
yeah, Bidet.
yeah. I always tell you it reminds me of that commercial, Mr. Dumas. But they were still I'm not going to say it the other way, but yeah, it's like that's what it reminds me of. But yeah, hey man, whatever. I hope he comes out and he produces and he has a big smile on his face on the sideline because he got 100 yards in his first real big action. But I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I think I don't know if Bo will get his first touchdown. Maybe he gets it in a situation where it's like a play action role where he can pass it or run it and he throws it to like a tight end coming across the back of the end zone or a running back.
So I have him, I believe the full prediction. I might be mistaken on the exact number here. I know I have at least one touchdown pass. It might be two, but I have over 300 yards and over 50 or 75 yards rushing. I think he has a really good day.
Oh wow!
As they continue to expand on him with this as a runner with this option offense that they can do, and Sean Payton starts to incorporate that a little bit more. And I do also have to go back to Tyler Bidet. I find it absolutely hilarious that one of the main storylines from this last week with the win is how do you pronounce his last name? I mean, it came out during the game. The announcer kept saying Bidet, Bidet, Bidet. And everybody's like, no, it's Beatty. It's Beatty. Then a tweet came out saying that he's changing it to Bidet. And then after the game, he did an interview where it's Beatty. And then, what was it, Wednesday after practice, he got a thing and he's saying it's been changed to Bidet. And on the Broncos website, it was changed to Bidet.
Yeah, I even saw like Chad and Zach talking about it. And then Zach was like, I don't know. And he was like kind of like really interested in how it was pronounced. And then Andrew Mason, I guess, was saying it was pronounced Bidet. And then like it was really interesting to Zach and then to Chad. And then I saw that he actually wrote an article about it. And I was like, oh, okay.
It was just
he got to the bottom of it.
I mean, all in all, this was a very interesting week with Broncos news with John Elway on The Masked Singer. Spoiler alert, if you guys watch that show and haven't seen the new episode yet, I apologize for that. I should give a spoiler warning earlier. But it's just been a funny news week with the Broncos win. I mean, name. How do we pronounce a name? I mean, and it's not. It doesn't look like a complicated name, and he did hint on it that it does deal with some family stuff that's going on. And then you have John Elway with that, like, and then Alex Singleton, like getting at the end to that, got hurt. We find out Wednesday he's going on injured reserve because he tore his ACL on the interception play in the first quarter and finished the game playing every single remaining snap on a torn ACL.
And he led the team in tackles.
And led the team in tackles. Like, I have been very outspoken about Alex Singleton not being as good as a lot of people think. Missed tackles are high. I mean, he tied for the lead in the NFL with missed tackles this year, led the league in missed tackles last year. Missed tackle percentage is always super high and struggles in coverage, but he brings energy and focus, and even with the missed tackles, he still makes so many good plays against the run. You can kind of live with them. But man, it's a bummer that he's losing out. Justin Sternad, I believe, is the one who's stepping up in his place. Not 100% sure. I think that's what I saw somebody say.
I heard Casey Welch there too.
Hmm?
I heard Welch is the other one that they were.
Welch is one YouTube. They've been splitting him and Cody Barton.
Okay.
For the first couple games too. So I wouldn't be surprised to keep that kind of rotation at the linebacker position going, especially with Singleton out. He's been the only constant. Start getting Justin out on the field a little bit, Welch and Barton as well. And I was very pessimistic about the Barton signing, but he's been playing pretty good football. Had a really good game against the Buccaneers. So again, cautiously optimistic. That's a word. That's a thing you'll hear from me often this season. Cautiously optimistic about Palczewski and this offensive line. Cautiously optimistic about the linebacker position.
Well, since you were talking about how these guys are playing a little bit better than you thought they were playing, what do you think about David Youngkin's comment here? He's starting to get back onto the VJ bandwagon.
A
lot of people are getting high. Nick Kendall wrote a pretty good article about.
Yeah, he's doing great things. He's really, I think. So last year, obviously we know the blowout. We know the struggles of the first few games. But the defense settled down, and obviously we had that historic turnover streak. He was changing up what he was doing schematically, and the thing is that a lot of people forget is that he was being forced to run a defense that he wasn't familiar with over those first few weeks, and then he was allowed to flip it over and start doing what he's more comfortable with. And then this year, he was allowed to go out and basically do what he wants with the scheme. While NFL teams are sticking with cover 3 a lot, he's up running cover 1. And he's disguising things in coverage so well. He's blitzing at a high rate, which is attributed to the play of Patrick Surtain and how consistent he can be in coverage. The penalties for the first couple games obviously are an issue, but Patrick Surtain is still a really great corner. So he's got personnel. He's really getting the most out of a lot of these guys, and he's able to run what he wants in a system that he was able to install from day one. And we're seeing it pay off with this defense.
Yeah, it's what if he does so well that somebody snatches them up?
I think if that happens, so I talked about this over the offseason that Jim Leonard being brought in.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the potential in-house replacement that we're looking at for Vance Joseph or for
Jim Leonard, the old safety we had. He used to do some punt returns for us and stuff like that too.
Yep.
Maybe play for the Jets.
Yeah, longtime player for the Jets. So he's the guy that I'm looking at. Whether Vance Joseph and the defense ended up struggling and Vance Joseph ended up being fired or doing so well like they seem to be doing so far and going elsewhere, then Jim Leonard's the guy here in-house that you're looking at replacing him.
Nice.
Or depending on what happens with him, because Vic Fangio has kind of adjusted to being this one-year stop guy, and Sean Payton. He wanted Vic Fangio last year before Vance Joseph, and Vic Fangio decided to go to the Miami Dolphins, even though Sean Payton was really interested in him coming back to Denver as a defensive coordinator. But obviously, we still have a lot of time between now and then to tell. But I do think Vance Joseph, if this continues, has a good chance of getting another shot as a head coach.
Then there's Rex Ryan too. How close did that get?
It got pretty close from what I understand. Okay. And the biggest thing from what I've heard, I don't know how true it is that there were some concerns from those up top about Rex Ryan with his style of being a head coach and leading to some butting of heads with his experience as a head coach and all that with Sean
Um,
Payton leading to some internal issues. I don't know how true that is, and that basically being a big reason why they ended up going with Vance Joseph's
yeah,
way.
I can see that with like a Hackett and Nathaniel Hackett. I don't know about Peyton though. Seems like he's too seasoned to where the mutual respect is there no matter what.
That's kind of how I felt as well, is that there should be a mutual respect for it. And I wasn't super high on Rex Ryan being the defensive coordinator. He's been out of the NFL for a long time, even though a lot of what the NFL is doing are stuff that he really made popular in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Still, that time away and with how the game can change, um, I was a little bit concerned for it, but it's all in the past now, and Vance Joseph seems to be doing a good job.
Nice. Hi, Pearl. How you doing? Looks like Rodney talked about why haven't they upgraded Parham to the active roster? Um, yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I understand like you have your guys, they're kind of set up and they're ready to go, but if they're not like kind of jumping off the page with some of their play, Parham is just too big to like not maybe situational. You bring him in. The other team's got smaller safeties or tight ends or linebackers or something because he's a massive dude, a huge target. I understand why they're not, but I would kick the tires on the guy. Otherwise, why is he even on the team?
I think at the first point is that you just got to activate him for a game, see what he can do. Um, Part of why that may not have happened yet is because of how late he was signed and still picking up things with the offense and a lack of chemistry with Bo Nix. Um, and that he's just kind of been brought in as insurance for Greg Dulcich getting hurt, but Greg Dulcich has not been playing well. His blocking is problematic, but again, his blocking being problematic, we all knew that was going to be the case.
Mhm.
It's been an issue for him going back to college. He's just not showing up as a receiver. The two drop game against the Steelers, obviously, that's an issue as well. I think you can look at it at about now. You've had 4 weeks of Parham on the practice squad. I think you can start looking at calling him up for this, but of course, injuries do play a factor in this, and seeing what he can offer in red zone packages specifically, because that is a hurdle that the Broncos need to get over. They did do better against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it's still an issue because between the 20s, Donald Parham is just basically a waste of a person on being out on the field. He doesn't offer anything there. So he's a red zone guy, a big
Yeah,
red zone guy at tight end.
down in
Is
the back
basically
of
what
the
he is.
end zone in the corner.
Yeah,
And then Michael Ronquillo brings up a pretty good point. Franklin Myers is a homecoming game. Um, it's so funny the whole situation where they got rid of him to make room for Hassan Riddick, and then Hassan Riddick held out, so now they have nobody. I mean, they have people, whatever, but not
yeah,
didn't how it was planned. And we got him for what, a sixth rounder,
yeah. For very little, I can't remember exactly off the top of my
which
head, but
is insane.
yeah, I mean, John Franklin Myers, he's had a quiet day in the box score. Hasn't gotten a lot of pressures. Hasn't had a sack yet. Few stops, but what he's done has helped open up room for guys like DJ Jones, Malcolm Roach, Zach Allen, Browning, Benito, Cooper, all these guys, because he's drawing more attention. So he's helped out that way. He's helped out in ways not on the box score. And of course, he also suffered a concussion early against the Steelers that caused him to
Oh yeah,
miss
I
the
forgot about that.
rest of the game as well. So we only have about 2 games really with Franklin Myers. So
I
we'll see
thought
what
he
we
had
can
a
have.
sack in the last game, but it might have just been a tackle for loss.
Um,
Um,
I can't
or maybe it
remember
was like a
exactly for
shared
sure.
tackle kind of situation.
Let's see here. You might be right, and I might be misremembering things. Let's see here. Mm,
Yeah, what
oh yeah,
happened?
he does have one sack. Sorry, yeah, he did
Oh no,
get
you're
one
fine.
sack against the Buccaneers. That's right. Um, so finally has finally done something for it, but he's only got a few pressures.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I mean, 3 pressures on 36 pass rushing snaps. Um, One of the lowest pressure rates on the team right now. Um, So definitely have to get more out of him. He's got 7 tackles, with 6 of them being stopped. So he has helped against the run too. Just want a little bit more out of him, right? Like when he was brought in, he was talking about how he's going to really help improve this interior pass rush of it, and we haven't seen it yet.
It's really nice
So
to see that he hasn't done as much, and we're still relatively really good
yeah,
up front. So it's only going
yeah,
to get better. Seems like.
and and part of it is he still has to adjust too. Like it's
Hmm.
not an instant thing for getting the salary or getting the scheme down, or getting chemistry around guys with you, because that's part of it with defensive line. We talk about it with offensive line. So with defensive line too, with knowing what they're doing, what they're setting up, how they're feeling things, and what you can do to help that, and what they can do to help you. That takes some time to adjust and develop with these guys. So I think we can start. I think the best of John Franklin Myers here as a Bronco is still ahead of him. And then Todd Ostendorf. Final question for tonight before we get out of here. Is Kroll still with us? I mean, just being big is not a reason to play someone. Um, Kroll is still with them, and he's not playing because he's not very good. There's a reason why he's struggling to see the field under Sean Payton. And while he's had flashes are fine, but there's no consistency with his game, and he isn't a better blocker than Greg Dulcich is. Or he's not significantly of a better blocker than Greg Dulcich is. They're about the same. We saw that in the preseason, and we saw how limited he is as a receiver. Lucas Kroll is more of an Adam Trotman type player, though Trotman absolutely clears as a blocker, who is a guy who you can use as a blocker and use in short passing situations as that safety blanket type, but he just hasn't shown to be more than that yet. Um, so that is why I think that Donald Parham, with what he can do in the red zone, is worth calling up and playing in a game over Lucas Kroll to help specifically with the Broncos' issues with the red zone passing offense.
Yeah, I feel like size kind of does make it. I mean, at a certain point, it doesn't make a difference, but I think it does. I've played it. I mean, when I was younger, we played against guys that were a receiver that was. I don't know, we were like real young. We were like maybe 5'8" at the time. And this receiver was 6'4", and the ball flew over my head, and I didn't even jump. I was like, "There's no way!" Like it was so high. And this guy just jumped up and snagged it. And I was like, what? Like, are you serious? But I mean, that's why in the red zone, um, above anywhere else, yeah. Because you just got to make the catch. You don't got to juke somebody out. You don't got to break tackles. You're going to outrun people. You just have to get higher than that other person. And if you're 6'8" or whatever, it's pretty easy to get higher.
And with long arms too, and pretty decent hops. Like Donald Parham, he has those elements to be such a threat in the red zone. And with and obviously, as you said, size does matter here, and
Is that where
especially
you're
in
laughing?
yeah, that's why I was laughing. I was trying to figure out a way to say it without saying it exactly like that, but yeah, that didn't happen. But anyways, especially in the red zone, I mean, there's a reason why you look at guys at receivers of like 6'4", 6'5", and like in drool. There's a reason why early in the show I talked about Alan Lazard and how he plays in the slot and how significant that can be because of the size advantage against Shaquan McMillan. And I know, Todd, you weren't saying that it means nothing. It does mean a lot. But that's going to have to do it for us today. As always, one thing you guys can always do to help us out, it only takes a matter of time, doesn't take any cost of money or anything like that, is subscribe, like, and share. If you're on YouTube, subscribing helps out the algorithm. Liking also helps out the algorithm so much. Commenting. Commenting is a big one. It can really help out the algorithms going forward on YouTube, especially with how they keep changing their algorithms around. And then sharing it to your YouTube, to your Twitter accounts, to Facebook, even by word of mouth. I mean, there are people here, and I live in a small area in Alaska that I've been recognized a couple times because people have told them like, "Oh, hey," or "I'm wearing my Dove Valley Divers hat," or my Sports Illustrated vest, or something like that, out and about, and they catch that and they're like, "Oh, hey, aren't you so and so with Mile High Huddle?" And word of mouth, it's a big way to help. Make sure
Definitely.
you guys go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some swag, as our boss Chad likes to call it. I'll stick with gear or merch. personally, but can get some merch or gear each month. You can follow us on Instagram at Mile High Huddle with the underscore between mile and high and huddle. You can go to mhhmerch.com and get your gear on, instead of swag. But all kinds of different stuff there. You got mugs, you got hats, you got shirts, you got sweatshirts, you got I think there's baby stuff on there even. I've been pushing for a tie because every now and then I'll wear a tie on the show, but no luck with that. Um, so make sure you guys go and check out that, especially with the holidays fast approaching. But you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod or facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. You can get access to all of our written content there. You can follow us on Twitter at Twitter, Mile High Huddle for the Motherhead account. Again, you get access to all videos, all shows, all written content, and at the Mile High Huddle Pod and at DVDD_pod for the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast specifically. And yeah, you guys can follow us all on there, and you guys can follow us specifically on Twitter at Kenneth_MHH for Kenneth Booker and at Erick Trickel for myself. We appreciate you guys for tuning in and everything. And Michael with a comment here: Riley Moss will still get targeted by the Jets. Fortunately, Riley Moss has been playing well, and honestly, not getting talked about enough with how well he's playing. Hasn't been great, but he's been consistent enough opposite Patrick Surtain, which is what you needed.
He got beat on a fingertip catch.
Yeah, it was one of those plays where the coverage was great, the throw and catch were just better.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens sometimes. It happens to some of the best. It's happened to Champ Bailey before, who's one of the best corners in the NFL to ever play the game. Happened to Darrell Revis. If you want to say he's the best corner to ever play the game, I'll stick with Champ. Thank you. At least Champ Bailey defended the run. Anyways, before we get out of here, Kenneth, any final words?
I think next week, I don't have my notes with me, but next Friday, it'll be during the show, I think at 6:00 down south it's a sports collectible place. Patrick Surtain's going to be doing some signings. Unfortunately, they're like $100, but it's still better than buying it later after market for $350 or whatever. If you do go down there, tell them we said what's up. Tell them I said hi. That's just a cool situation, cool experience to get to meet the players, because he seems like a genuinely cool guy, and if he's really cool, it makes it just that much better, and it makes you just that much more of a fan. I'm going to a comedy thing this weekend. Maj Jabroni, I think his name is. He's if you've ever seen The Next Friday, the second Friday movie, he plays the guy that owns the donut shop. It's pretty funny. But besides that, just gonna keep trying to get outside while the weather's nice. Everybody, keep doing that. Get ready for these Broncos, for the CU, for CSU, all the Colorado teams to show out. Avalanche just started. Nuggets will be pretty soon. But right now it's Broncos season. So until Broncos season's over, it's Broncos season. So
and definitely if you can, get out there and enjoy the weather while you still can. The weather here has been terrible.
Oh yeah,
the leaves are falling off the tree. It's been wet. It's been rainy, and it's getting cold. My little one, was sick yesterday and sick today. I was sick yesterday. So definitely enjoy that weather you can, the good weather if you can. And if you are in the Florida, Georgia, the area of the hurricane, I hope you guys have stayed safe and are okay, and are either evacuated or hunkered down and are okay. We really hope that you are. As for that, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope you guys all stay safe. Don't drink and drive. And as always, go Broncos.